Let me ask you something. That secret spot, you know the one, the weed line that was on fire all of July, why is it a complete ghost town in January? You're freezing your butt off, casting at memories, and getting nothing but a cold retrieve. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on one of the biggest, most frustrating mysteries in fishing. Why your summer trophy spot is probably the worst place to be in the winter. And I'm not just going to tell you that it happens. I'm going to show you the violent lake-wide event that forces those fish out, and more importantly, where they actually went. The answer has nothing to do with luck. Before we dive in, let me know in the comments, are you still fishing your summer spots right now? Be honest. It's pure muscle memory for most of us. We have success in a spot, we mark it on the GPS, and we hammer it every time we go out. It becomes an article of faith. We listen to the old-timers who say, fish are creatures of habit, they'll be in the same spots. And, to be fair, that's partially true, Pierre, for a few months out of the year. The problem is, we start to see the lake as a static, unchanging map. We think of points, flats, and weed beds as being good or bad year-round, but that's a huge mistake. A lake isn't a map, it's a living, breathing ecosystem that goes through a radical personality change at least twice a year. Understanding this change is the difference between a full live well and a full-blown skunk. Let's start by painting a picture of that perfect summer spot. Close your eyes and you can see it. It's a shallow flat, maybe 4 to 8 feet deep, choked with lily pads and coontail. In July, it's a 5-star hotel for base. The sun is beating down and that vegetation provides two critical things, shade and oxygen. The photosynthesis from all that green stuff is pumping oxygen into the water. Baitfish are everywhere hiding in the salad. A big largemouth doesn't have to move more than a foot to get a meal. It's an all-you-can-eat buffet in a comfortable, air-conditioned room. This is why it's so productive. The fish have everything they need in one compact, convenient location. It's a perfect world for a predator. Now think about how you fish it in the summer. You can throw a topwater frog over those pads at sunrise and it's pure chaos. You can punch a heavy jig into the thickest stuff at midday and pull out a giant. It feels like the fish will live there forever. This is the powerful memory you're holding on to when you return in the dead of winter, bundled in 5 layers of clothing. You're casting at the ghost of a perfect summer day, expecting the same results. But that 5-star hotel has been condemned and boarded up. The residents have long since moved out, the buffet is closed, and the power has been shut off. And it wasn't a quiet move, it was a violent eviction. So what caused this mass eviction? It begins in the fall. As the days get shorter and the air gets colder, the surface water of the lake begins to cool. All summer, your lake was stratified. It was layered like a cake with warm, oxygen-rich water on top and cold, oxygen-poor water on the bottom. In between was a sharp transition zone called the thermocline. Fish use this thermocline like a highway, but as the surface water cools, it becomes denser and heavier. It starts to sink. This is the beginning of a process that will tear the entire lake apart from the inside out. This leads us to the main event, the fall turnover. When that cooling surface water reaches the same temperature as the water at the bottom, its density is the same. Now a strong autumn wind is all it takes. That wind pushes the water around, and because there are no density layers to stop it, the entire lake mixes. The cold water from the top goes to the bottom, and the nutrient-rich, low-oxygen water from the bottom comes to the top. This is not a gentle process. It's a violent, chaotic mixing of the entire water column. For the fish, it's like having their house torn down by a hurricane. Imagine you're a fish living on that shallow flat. One day, everything is perfect. The next, your world is turned upside down. The water suddenly becomes murky, filled with decaying matter from the bottom. The oxygen levels, which were once stable and high, are now scattered and unpredictable. The temperature, which you were perfectly acclimated to, suddenly plunges. The thermocline highway you used to navigate is completely gone. The entire structure of your environment has been erased. The fish are stressed, confused, and scattered everywhere. This is why the fishing can get so tough for a week or two in the fall. After the turnover is complete, the lake enters its winter state. The water is now uniformly cold from top to bottom. As winter sets in, the coldest water, which is just above freezing, is actually less dense, so it rises to the top and eventually forms ice. But the key here is that the environment is now completely different. The rules have changed. The priorities of every fish in that lake have shifted from eat and grow to survive and conserve, and your perfect summer spot is now one of the worst places to be for a creature trying to do just that. Let's revisit that shallow, weedy flat in January. What's wrong with it now? First, the weeds are dead or dying. That lush green forest is now a brown, decaying mess. Instead of producing oxygen through photosynthesis, that decaying vegetation is now actively consuming oxygen, creating a low oxygen zone. Second, there's no food. The schools of baitfish that were hiding in those weeds all summer have moved. There's no reason for them to be there anymore. So, the buffet is officially closed for the season. Two of the main draws of the spot are completely gone. The third and most important factor is stability. Fish are cold-blooded animals. Their body temperature is regulated by the water around them. In cold water, their metabolism slows to a crawl. They don't need to eat a big meal every day. Their primary goal is to find the most stable environment possible where they can burn the fewest calories. A shallow flat is the opposite of stable. It's the first place to get colder during a cold front and the first to warm slightly during a sunny spell. These temperature swings, even minor ones, force a fish to adjust, which burns precious energy. Think of a fish's energy reserves like the battery on your phone. In the summer, they're constantly plugged in, with an endless supply of food. They can afford to be active, chase baits, and live in dynamic environments. In the winter, they've unplugged the charger. They are running on battery saver mode. Every movement, every adjustment drains that battery a little bit. They are looking for a place where they can just sit perfectly still and not have to worry about changing conditions. Your shallow summer spot is like a noisy, drafty room that's constantly forcing them to move. So where did all the trophy fish go? They didn't vanish, they just moved to a better winter neighborhood. They are looking for two things: depth and verticality. Depth provides temperature stability. The water in deeper sections of the lake is more insulated from the daily fluctuations of the weather. It might be 35 degrees down there, but it's a very stable 35 degrees. This is the calm, quiet room they've been searching for. It's the place where they can conserve the most energy. The second thing they look for is vertical structure. This is the real secret. Think about steep bluff walls, main lake points that drop sharply into a river channel, or the outside bends of creek channels. Why are these spots so good? Because they allow a fish to make a significant depth change with very little horizontal movement. If a sunny day warms the upper water column by a degree or two, the fish can move up just a few feet to take advantage of it without swimming 100 yards. It's the most energy-efficient way to live. Let's visualize this. On a bluff wall, a base can suspend at 25 feet in perfectly stable water. If it sees an opportunity, like a school of shad passing overhead at 15 feet, it can move up, grab a quick meal, and then sink right back down to its resting zone. It barely has to move its tail. Compare that to the fish on your old, shallow flat. To get to deeper, more stable water, it would have to swim the entire length of the flat, a journey of maybe hundreds of feet. That's a huge waste of energy that a winter base simply cannot afford. So your fish finder becomes your best friend in the winter. You need to stop looking for the green, weedy stuff and start looking for the red, stacked lines on your contour map. You are no longer hunting for cover in the traditional sense. You are hunting for topography. You're looking for the sharpest, steepest drops you can find. These are the new winter high-rises where all the former residents of your shallow five-star hotel have now moved. They might not be as aggressive, but they are absolutely there, and they are often grouped up tightly. Another thing to consider is bait. While the bass's metabolism has slowed, they do still need to eat occasionally. The shad and other bait fish have also moved to these same deep, vertical areas for the same reasons, stability. So when you find the steep drop-offs, you're not just finding the bass, you're also finding their winter food source. It's a much more barren kitchen than the summer weed beds, but it's the only one that's open for business. Find the bait on your electronics, and you will find the bass nearby, usually suspended just below them. This is why lure selection changes so drastically in the winter too. In the summer, you're trying to trigger a reaction from an aggressive, well-fed fish with fast-moving baits. In the winter, you are trying to tempt a lethargic fish that's in energy saver mode. That's why slow, vertical presentations excel. A jigging spoon, a drop shot, or a float and fly can be held perfectly still right in the fish's face. You are making it so easy for the fish to eat that it would take more energy to ignore the meal than to eat it. You're offering free delivery. Let's put it all together in a real-world scenario. You pull up to the lake in January. Your first instinct is to go to that cove with the big lily pad field where you caught that 6-pounder in June. You spend an hour there casting a spinnerbait, and you don't get a single bite. The water is cold and stained. It feels dead. Now, armed with this new knowledge, you ignore that spot. You pull out your lake map, find the old river channel, and motor over to the steepest, sharpest bend you can find. The bank is practically a cliff. You idle over the spot with your fish finder. The top of the channel ledge is at 15 feet, and it drops straight down to 40. And there they are. On your screen you see a big ball of bait suspended at 20 feet. Just below them you mark several large arches sitting perfectly still at 25 to 30 feet. These are the bass. They've found their winter home. They are positioned perfectly on that vertical structure, just waiting for an easy meal to drift by. They have everything they need right there. Now you know not to throw a fast-moving crankbait at them. You drop a small silver jigging spoon straight down into the zone. You let it hit the bottom, then you lift it up a couple of feet and just let it hang there, imparting tiny little twitches. You're not trying to imitate a frantic, fleeing baitfish. You're imitating a dying shad, an easy meal that requires almost zero effort to catch. You hold it there, and then you feel it. Not a hard thump like in the summer, but just a subtle weight, a mushy feeling. You reel down and sweep, and the rod loads up. That fish you just hooked is likely the same trophy bass that was living in the shallow weeds 6 months ago. It hasn't left the lake. It has just adapted to a radically different environment. By abandoning your summer honey hole and understanding the seasonal needs of the fish, you've intercepted it in its new home. You've stopped fishing based on memory and started fishing based on the biological realities of the winter season. This is the fundamental shift in thinking that separates the consistently successful winter anglers from everyone else. So, is your summer spot a complete dead zone? Yes, for all intents and purposes, it is. It's a biological trap, a place that holds the memory of past success but offers no real potential for winter fishing. The fish are not there. The food is not there. And the stable conditions they need to survive are not there. The lie is not that the spot was never good. The lie is the belief that a spot can be good forever, without regard to the massive, violent, and predictable changes that every lake undergoes as the seasons turn. Your job as an angler is to change with it. So, the big takeaway is this: your lake essentially dies and is reborn twice a year. The rules of summer are completely thrown out the window come winter. The real shocker isn't that the fish leave your summer spot, it's that they are forced out by a lake-wide cataclysm called turnover. You're not just fishing an empty spot, you're fishing a spot that is now biologically hostile to them. This changes everything. It means you have to stop thinking about specific spots. Start thinking about seasonal zones and patterns. Your mental map of the lake has to change with the calendar. Instead of hitting that same old weed bed, you should be firing up your electronics and hunting for the steepest drop-offs you can find. That's where the party is now. Thanks for sticking with me through that. If this blew your mind a little, do me a favor and hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss our next deep dive. And for the final question, now that you know about lake turnover, what's the first thing you're going to change about your winter fishing strategy? Drop your new game plan in the comments below. Let's talk about it.